Welcome everyone to this live podcast on Twitch where you can find the news from the research industry that how our researchers keep on researching on various topics and domains to keep our lifestyle better and useful of course. And yes, this article posted on our website named postscientist.com. If you're willing to check it out, please check it out. Otherwise, listening to this podcast will be enough for you guys as it acts like an archive on the daily basis, providing you the information from the research industry. So let's get started without wasting any further time. The first topic of the day, cluster of galaxy easier to view with radio X-ray combination. Okay, let's see. Through the clever use of two types of telescope, a team of researchers has produced stunning images of clusters of galaxies. This not only produces beautiful images but also provides more information about the enormous amount of energy released around supermassive black holes in clusters. The astronomer led by a PhD student Roland Timmer, Timmerman Leiden University, the Netherlands, will soon publish their method in the journal Astronomy and Astrophysics. Astronomers have long known that supermassive black holes at the center of galaxy produce huge jets. These jets shoot away from the black hole and heat the gas in the wider surroundings. When the jets collide with gas, they form huge lobes tens of thousands of light years in diameter. It can take hundreds of millions of years for those lobes to fade out. Thus, in theory at least, the lobes give astronomers a lot of information regarding what occurred in a cluster. The problem, however, is that the information is difficult to extract from the lobes. An international team of astronomers has now put an end to that. They combined measurements from the radio telescope LOFAR, whose code is in the Netherlands, with those from the X-ray satellite Chandra, whole greater than sum. That combination provides a much better idea of what's going on, explains researcher Roland Timmerman, Leiden University, the Netherlands. It's cliche, but the whole is really greater than the sum of the parts here. Chandra and Lofer can individually make a pretty reasonable guess about the amount of energy injected by the black hole into the cluster environment. But together they are even stronger. Previously, this combination was not possible because no radio images were available with sufficient quality to match Chandra's X ray image. Because low-Earth antenna stations are now located throughout Europe, the resolution is high enough. The astronomers now have radio images that are comparable in sharpness to visible light images from the Hubble telescope. To demonstrate the technique, they imaged the Perseus cluster, that is a group of more than 1,000 galaxies located about 240 million light years in the direction of the northern constellation Perseus. Meanwhile, astronomers are creating composite images of other clusters of galaxies. With the underlying data, they hope to understand more about the interaction between galaxies and their surrounding in the early universe. Okay. I guess there is no need to explain or any input by my side. So, I mean, we are moving towards next topic. Study find less expensive, non-invasive test is an effective alternative for collateral colorectal cancer screening. Study find less expensive non-invasive test is an effective alternative for colorectal cancer screening. Okay, let's see. Commercially available non-invasive screening test for colorectal cancer of fecal immunochemical test (FIT) The multi-target tool, DNA test, MTS DNA, or Colgard are equally effective for screening patients with early stage colorectal cancer. However, FIT cost about one fifth of the multi-target DNA test, according to new study result presented at the Scientific Forum of the American College of Surgeons (ACS) Clinical Congress 2022. Pawan K. Rao, MD, a general surgery resident of Allegheny Health Network in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, presented study result looking at 100 170,519 people in the in the high mark claims database who underwent colorectal colorectal screening in 2019. Highmark is a Blue Cross Blue Shield Association insurer in four mid-Atlantic states. From the group, the researcher identified 91,297 people who had non-invasive screening with either the fecal immunochemical test FIT-N is equal to 45 to 487, the range, or the DNA test MTS DNA N46 to 110 instead of having a routine colonoscopy. Key findings among the study population that underwent colorectal screening 45,487, 38.7% had one of the two commercially available FIT tests, and 46,110, 39.2% had the mtDNA test. Patients who were screened with either test presented with early disease stage from 0 to 2nd at similar rate 59.5% for FIT and 63.2% for an MT-SDNA test. P is equal to 0.77. Patient within the Allegheny Health Network Oncology Registry diagnosed with colorectal cancer were matched to their claims data to determine distribution of cancer stage. If the non-invasive test indicated signs of early disease, patients were then referred for additional testing to confirm the findings. The total annual cost for the test was $6.47 billion to $1.1 million for a FIT, or about $24 per test, and $5.6 million for MIT SDNA, or about $121 per test. Costs were calculated using Medicare reimbursement rates. Observation on study results. The study followed guidelines issued by the US Preventive Service Task Force USP-STF in 2016 and updated in 2019. Since then, the guidelines were updated again in 2021. Despite national guidelines suggesting that FIT be used as the primary non-invasive screening modality, we found that on review of our insurer claims data, a significant proportion of patients still receive a more expensive alternative test. There is substantial cost saving not only to our patient but to our health system with promoting appropriate use of non-invasive testing, Dr. Rao said. There was no difference in the clinical stage at the time of diagnosis between the two tests, where again demonstrates the clinical equipoise maintained by switching to FIT. Dr. Rao said of the variation between the two tests. He added, when you look at the national data for which the guideline put forward, they found no difference between the two tests at detecting adenoma versus colorectal malignancy. Cost saving without compromising care. The researcher determined that transitioning all non-invasive colorectal cancer screening to FIT would result in a 3.9 million savings annually in the study population. In the current state of healthcare, we are thinking ever more about efficiency and reduction in cost while maintaining patient outcomes and not compromising the quality of care we provide, Dr. Rao said. I think a colorectal surgeon or any specialist who sees appropriate patient for colorectal cancer screening can use this data to provide the recommendations of alternative screening tests to patients who primarily do not want to undergo colonoscopy. We cannot only say it is appropriate from a guideline standpoint, and but we are also reducing wasteful spending in healthcare by appropriate using the fit. What makes this study unique is the methodology used to analyze the claims data, said study co-author Casey J. Allen, MD, a surgical on- oncologist at Allegheny Health Network and an assistant professor at Drexel University College of Medicine, Pittsburgh. The researcher analyzed outcomes in the local health registry and then applied those outcomes to the claims database. It's not just about the cost of the MTS DNA test kit or the cost of FIT kit multiplied by the number of members in the healthcare system, Dr. Allen said. It's the fully downstream to cost depending on the rates of false positive and false negative tests and how much it costs to obtain a colonoscopy when that occurs. The cost of a screening colonoscopy in the database the researcher used was six $635. These results support previous studies out of Japan and the Netherlands that found FIT was more cost effective than other types of non invasive colorectal screening tests. Okay, okay. So I mean, it's been very useful for uh, many patients out there, of course, and as well as many doctors out there. So it's been a good thing to understand these type of objects or these type of experiments and tests around the world. I mean, great. Moving on to our next topic. Portugal bets all on renewables after abandoning coal. As the UN step up calls to make the switch to renewable energy to fight the global climate emergency, Portugal is among the first European Union countries to abandon coal. It will share the lesson it has learned so far at November COP27 UN climate summit in Egypt. It has been nearly a year now since smoke has trailed up from the cooling towers of the coal plant in Pigo, 120 kilometers, 70 miles northeast of the capital Lisbon. The lights are often at the station, and the dust gathering on the steel structure attest to the fact that the last coal plant in Portugal shut down in November last year after 30 years in service. The authorities in Lisbon shut down this fossil fuel 8 years sooner than planned, and just months after the science coal plant some 90 kilometers south of Lisbon closed at the start of 2021. Portugal is one of the handful of EU member states, along with Belgium and Sweden, to have renounced coal as an energy source. Okay, the energy crisis triggered by the war in Ukraine prompted Austria to reverse a previous decision to close coal-fired plants. Portugal, however, remains convinced that it will not be necessary to renege on this decision. Environment Minister Duarte Coordenado said in mid-September. An example in Europe. Portugal is an example in Europe, says Pedro Nunes, an expert in renewable energy at the University of Lisbon and policy officer with the environmental Group Zero. The two coal plant recently closed accounted for nearly 20% of Portugal's greenhouse gases, he points out. To replace coal contribution to electricity production, the government hopes to continue developing its green energy to provide 80% of its energy by 2026, up from 40% in 2017. If the share of renewables in electrical output hit nearly 60% in 2021, the figure dropped back to 40% this year, owing to a historic drought which slashed hydroelectric power. The UN World meteorological organization called Tuesday for the world to double the supply of electricity from renewables by 2030 to prevent climate change from undermining global energy security. Electricity has not only been a major source of carbon emission driving climate change, but it is also vulnerable to the effects of a warming planet. The WMO said Portugal is aiming to increase its wind power and solar capacity. It's currently ranked 8th and 30th, respectively, in Europe, but it remains heavily dependent on fossil fuel, which accounted for 71% of its energy mix in 2020, according to Eurostat. In the transition phase, the strategy initially passes via electricity produced by gas planets, which are one third less polluting than coal, said Nunes. Imports rising. Portugal has used natural gas fired combined cycle power plants like the one running since 2011 on the Pego site next to the decommissioned coal plant. It is scheduled to run until 2035. It not by chance that Portugal has been among the first in Europe to abandon coal, says Pedro Almeida Fernandes, tasked with renewable energy for the Portuguese subsidiary of Spain, Endesa. The country has been preparing for this energy transition for a long time, he says. Endesa won the contract to reconvert by 2025 the Pego coal plant into a complex combining solar power, wind energy, and green hydrogen. Okay, this is after all a place that enjoys 300 days of sunshine per year. Okay. With that kind of resource, Portugal aims to increase solar power production by 50% to the 3 gigawatts in 2022 alone, according to a government estimate. Nevertheless, Pedro Climate Nuance, an energy specialist at Lisbon Technical University, said the country move away from coal had been badly planned in Portugal. For a year, Portugal considerably increased its electric imports from neighboring Spain, which continues to produce energy from coal, he said. So these are the findings, these are the studies, um, and it's the news which being provided by us. So yep, I mean everyone needs energy to suffer the to sustain their country, of course. So yep, uh, everyone taking everyone taking action according to their needs. So yep, I mean it's a great. Teens tackle 21st century challenges at robotics contest. Okay, let's see. For this first trip to celebrate robotics contest for high school students from scores of countries, a team of Ukrainian teens had a problem with shipments of goods to Ukraine uncertain and Ukrainian custom officer careful about incoming merchandise. The group only received a base kit of gadgetry on the day they were set to leave for the event in Geneva. That set off a mad scramble to assemble the robot for the latest edition of the first global contest, a 3 day affair that opened Friday in person for the first time since the pandemic. Nearly all the 180 odd teams from countries across the world had months to prepare their robots. We couldn't back down because we really determined to compete here and to give our country a good result because it really needs it right now, says said Danlo Gen- uh, Gledki, a member of Ukrainian team. He and his teammates are too young to be eligible for Ukrainian national call-up for all men over 80 to take part in the war effort. Gledkia said an international package delivery company wasn't delivering to Ukraine and reliance on a smaller private company to ship the kit from Poland into Ukraine got tangled up with custom official that Logjam got cleared last Sunday, forcing the team to dash to get their robot ready with adaptation. They had planned only days before the contest began. The event launched in 2017 with backing from American innovator Dean Kamen. encourages young people from all corners of the globe to put their technical smarts and mechanical know-how to challenges that represent symbolic solution to global problems. This year theme is carbon capture and nascent technology in which excess heat trapping CO2 in the atmosphere is sucked out of skies and sequestered often underground to help uh, fight global warming. Teams use game controllers like those attached to consoles in millions of households worldwide to direct their self designed robot to zip around pets or fields to scoop up hollow plastic balls with hollows in them that symbolically represent carbon. Each round starts by emptying a clear rectangular box filled with the balls into the field, promoting a widening, hissing scramble to pick them up. The initial goal is to fill a topped by a funnel in the center of the field with as many balls as possible. Teams can do that in one of the two ways, either by directing the robot to feed the balls into corner pockets where team members can plug them out and toss them by hand into the funnel, or by having the robots catapult the balls up into the funnels themselves. Every team has an interesting in filling the tunnel. The more collected, the more everyone benefits. But in the final 30 seconds of each session, after the frantic quest to collect the balls, a second cutthroat challenge awaits. Along the stem of each tower are short branches or bars at the varying levels that the team choosing the mechanism of their choice, such as hooks, winches, or extendable arms, try to direct the robots to ascend. The higher the level reached, the greater the multiplier of the total point value of the balls they will receive. The success is getting as high as possible, and with six teams on the field, it's a dash for the highest perch. By mashing competition with common interest, the first global initiative aims to offer a tonic to a troubled world where kids look past politics to help solve problems that face everybody. The opening day ceremony had an Olympic vibe with their teams parading in behind their national flags and short bars of national anthem playing, but the young people made it clear this was about a new kind of global high school sport in an industrial domain that promises to leave a large footprint in the 21st century. The competition takes many winds of troubles in the world, from Russia invasion of Ukraine to the fallout from Syria, lingering war, to famine in the Horn of Africa, and recent upheaval in Iran. While most of the world countries were taking up a part, some were not. Russia, in particular, has been left out. Past winners of such robotics competition include Team Hope, Refugees, and Stateless others, and a team of Afghan girls. So, I mean, they deserved it, of course. I mean, it's a great victory for those things and challenges that teen tackles in the 21st century in these countries, in the developing countries, of course. So, yep, these are the things, these are the studies given by a. It's a basically a report which is being provided by us. So, yep, moving on to our next topic. Scientists use toxic hogweed to make anode material for cheap sodium ion battery for wind farms. Hmm. Researchers from MSU and Skoltech have transmuted a pesky poisonous weed into high grade anode material for sodium ion batteries. They are an emerging cheaper alternative to lithium ion batteries for users where compact size is not crucial, such as on solar and wind farms. The study was published in Batteries. We thought, wouldn't it be fun to take something as nasty and ob- optionable, object objectionable as hogweed and make something useful out of it. Study co-author Zoya Bobleva of Lomonosov Moscow State University commented the thing about hard carbon material used in sodium ion battery anodes is you can make them from biomass of virtually any origin. No one has considered hogweed before, but it turned out pretty well. Snowscube hogweed is an invasive plant that causes severe skin burns. Originally imported to central Russia from Caucasus as an experimental forest crop, it quickly got out of control, and according to the forecast by Skoltech, researcher is threatening to spread over the entire European part of the country by the mid 21st century. Sodium ion batteries are an alternative technology for power storage that avoids using lithium, which is largely concentrated in a select few countries, is becoming increasingly expensive and is not environmental friendly in production. If a battery uses sodium ion instead of lithium ions, however, completely different materials have to be used in the cathode and anode. Not long ago, Skoltech researcher proposed a cathode material with outstanding properties. This time, another research group based on the institute and MSU came up with a high quality anode material derived from a fairly unlikely source. As of today, hard carbon offers the best combination of properties for the sodium ion battery anode. It's an amorphous form of carbon that does not transform into graphite even when exposed to very high temperatures. Unlike graphite, its structure can accommodate sodium ion and release them over many cycles, which is crucial for battery operation and it does not significantly expand in size upon charge up. It is also cheap, reasonable, easy to synthesize and dispose of, and does not create significant fire hazards. The two key figures of merit here are Coulombic efficiency and energy storage capacity. The study principal investigator Professor Evgeny Antipov of Skoltech and MSU said the hard carbon produced by the MSU Skoltech team exhibited a Coulombic efficiency of 87%, which is on par with the best reported result for hard carbon synthesized from other raw materials. The characteristics reflects how well a material stores energy without wasting it on unwanted irreversible secondary process that actually harm the battery. As for the energy storage capacity at about 2060 mega uh, mega ampere, the material falls short of the best result reported elsewhere around 300 mega ampere, but is still reasonably good. In fact, we consider both winter hogweed, which is safer for harvesting, and the nasty summer hogweed in full bloom. Hate to tell you, but the specimens gathered in the summer proved better in terms of Coulombic efficiency of the end product, which is the characteristic we emphasized in this study because it stands to be the weak spot of hard carbon anodes. As of the energy storage capacity, there are ways we can probably improve it later on. Boblia lever are added. The team tested three popular approaches to hard carbon synthesis. First, their direct carbonization, heating the biomass to 1300 degrees Celsius in an atmosphere without oxygen. Alternatively, you can treat the biomass with an acid to remove metallic and other impurity prior to carbonization. This approach resulted in a significantly higher Coulombic efficiency. Or you can boil the hogweed biomass in water in a closed reactor. This produces very small carbon containing spheres. While all three approaches led to comparable energy storage capacity, heat treatment with prior impurity removal resulted in the best Coulombic efficiency. The demand to rechargeable accumulators will continue to grow, and when it comes to stationary batteries deployed at industrial facilities and in the population, sorry, and in the production of renewable energy to even out fluctuation in available sunlight or wind powered, the sodium ion technology appears very promising. These batteries will be much cheaper, and while they might be heavier and bulkier, it won't be much of a problem for the relevant application. Study co-author Professor Artem Abakumov said he heads the Center of Energy Science and Technology at the Tech. Okay, moving on to our next topic. AI image generation is advancing at astronomical speeds. Can we still tell if a picture is fake? Fake photography is nothing new. In the 1910s, British author Arthur Conan Doyle was famously deceived by two school-aged sisters who had produced photographs of elegant fairies cavorting in their garden. Today, it is hard to believe these photos could have fooled anybody, but it was not until the 1980s an expert named Jeffrey Crowley had the nerve to directly apply his knowledge of film photography and deduce the obvious. The photographs were fake, as later admitted by one of the sisters themselves, hunting the artifacts and common sense. Okay, digital photography has opened up a wealth of techniques for fakers and detective alike. For forensic examination of suspect images nowadays involve hunting for qualities inert to digital photography, such as examining metadata embedded in the photos using software such as Adobe Photoshop to correct distortions in images and searching for telltale signs of manipulation, such as regions being duplicated to obscure original features. Sometimes digital edits are too subtle to detect but leap into a view when we adjust the way light and dark pixels are distributed. For example, in 2010, NASA released a photo of Saturn moons Dione and Titan. It was in no way fake, but had been cleaned up to remove stray artifacts, which caught the attention of conspiracy theorists. Curious, I put the image into Photoshop. The illustration become recreates roughly how this looked. Most digital photographs are in compressed formats such as JPG, of course, slimmed down by removing much of the information captured by the camera. Standardized algorithm ensure the information removed has minimal visible impact, but it does leave traces, of course. The the compression of any region of an image will depend on what is going on in the image and current camera settings. When a fake image combines multiple sources, it is often possible to detect this is by careful analysis of the compression artifacts. Some forensic methodology has little to do with the format of an image, but is essential visual detective work. Is everyone in the photograph lit in the same way? Are shadows and reflection making sense? Are ears and hands showing light and shadow in the right places? What is reflected in the people eyes? Would all the lines and angles of the room add up if we modeled the scene in 3D? Arthur Conan Doyle may have been fooled by fairy photos, but I think his creation Sherlock Holmes would be right at home in the world of forensic photo analysis, a new era of artificial intelligence. Hmm. Okay. The current explosion of images created by text to image artificial intelligence AI tools is in many ways more radical than the shift from film to digital photography. We can now conjure an image we want just by typing. These images are not Franken photos made by cobbling together pre-existing clumps of pixels. They are entirely new images with the content, quality, and style specified. Until recently, the complex neural networks used to generate this image have had limited availability to the public. This changed in August 23rd to 2020 with the release to the public of the open source stable diffusion. Now, anyone with a gaming level NVIDIA graphic cards in their computer can create AI image content without any research lab or business gatekeeping their activities. Oh, okay, okay. This has prompted many to ask, can we can we ever believe what we see online again? That depends, of course. Text to image AI gets its smarts from training the analysis of a large number of image caption pairs. The strength and weakness of each system are in part derived from just what images it has been trained on. Here is an example. This is how Stable Diffusion sees George Clooney doing his ironing. This is far from realistic. All Stable Diffusion has to go on is the information it has learned, and while it is clear it has seen George Clooney and can link that a string of letters to the actor features, it is not Clooney expert. However, it would have seen and digested many more photos of middle-aged men in general. So let's see what happens. What we ask for generic middle-aged man in the same scenario. This is a clear improvement, but still not quite realistic, as far always been the case. The tricky geometry of hands and ears are good places to look for signs and fakery. Although in this medium we are looking at the spatial geometry rather than the tells of impossible lighting. There may be other clues. If we carefully reconstructed the room, would the corners be square? Would the shelf make sense? A forensic expert used to examining digital photographs would probably make a call on that. We can no longer believe on eyes. If we extend our text to image system knowledge, it can do even better. You can add your own described photographs to supplement existing training. This process is known as textual inversion. Recently, Google has released Dream Booth, an alternative, more sophisticated method for injecting specific people, objects, or even art styles into text to image AI systems. This process requires heavy duty hardware, but the results are staggering. Some great work has begun to be shared on Reddit. Look at the photos in the post below that shows image put into dream booth and realistic fake images from stable diffusion. We can no longer believe our eyes, but we may still be able to trust those of forensic experts. At least for now, it is entirely possible that future system could be deliberately trained to fool them too. We are rapidly moving into an era where perfect photographic and even video will be common. Time will tell how significant this will be, but in the meantime, it is worth remembering the lesson of the contigly fairy photos. Sometimes people just want to believe even in obvious fakes. Of course, of course. I mean, uh, I already done those things, so that's why I'm laughing. So yep, these is true, and this is advancing, of course, and it's being amazed by everyone, and the people can't even decipher that how it is going to fake it. I mean, how much it's a fake image, and still it's being clearly seen by those channels or those eyes, but for the normal human being who are not into those things, so it's a great thing. It's a great, not, it's a great thing, of course. It's useful for the fake ones who pretend to be, so yep. I mean, okay. Moving on towards next topic. Simple microparticles can beat rhythmic, rhythmically together, generating an oscillating electrical current. Taking advantage of a phenomenon known as emergent behavior in the microscale, MIT engineers have designed simple microparticles that can collectively generate complex behavior much the same way that a colony of ants and can dig tunnels or collect food. Working together, the microparticles can generate a beating clock that oscillates at a very low frequency. These oscillations can then be harnessed to power tiny robotic devices, and the researcher showed. In addition to being interesting from a physics point of view, this behavior can also be translated into an onboard oscillatory electrical signal. which can be very powerful in micro robotic autonomy. There are a lot of electrical components that require such an oscillatory input, says Jing Fan Yang, a recent MIT PhD recipient, recip, recip, recipient and one of the lead author of the new study. The particle used to create the new oscillator perform a simple chemical reaction that allows the particles to interact with each other through the formation and bursting of tiny gases bubbles under the right condition. These interaction create an oscillator that behaves similar to a ticking clock beating at intervals of a few seconds. We are trying to look for very simple rules or feature that you can encode into relatively simple micro robotic machines to get them to collectively do very sophisticated tasks, says Mikhail Strano, the carbon P. Dubs, a professor of chemical engineering at MIT. Strano is the senior author of the new paper which appears today in the Nature Communication, along with Yang Thomas Brutta, a Northwestern University graduate student voiced by the professor Todd Murphy, is a lead author of the study. Collective behavior demonstration of emergent behavior can be seen throughout the natural world, where colonies of insects such as ants and bees accomplish feats that a single member of the group would never be able to achieve. Ants have minuscule brains and they do very simple cognitive tasks, but collectively they can do amazing things. They can forage for food and build these elaborate tunnel structures. Shano says physicists and engineers like myself want to understand these rules because it means we can make tiny things that collectively do complex tasks. In this study, the researchers wanted to design particles that could generate rhythmic movements or oscillation with a very low frequency. Until now, building low frequency micro oscillators has required sophisticated electronics that are expensive and difficult to design, or specialized material with complex chemistries. The simple particle that the researcher designed for the study are discs as small as 100 microns in diameter. The discs are made from a polymer called SU8, have a platinum patch that can catalyze the breakdown of hydrogen peroxide into water and oxygen. When the particles are placed at the surface of the droplet of hydrogen peroxide on a flat surface, they tend to travel to the top of the droplet at this liquid air interface. They interact with any other particles found there. Each particle produces its own tiny bubble of oxygen, and when two particles come close enough that their bubbles interact, the bubbles pop, propelling the particles away from each other. Then they begin forming new bubbles, and the cycle repeats over and over. One particle by itself stays still and doesn't do anything interesting, but through a teamwork, they can do something pretty amazing and useful, which is actually a difficult thing to achieve at the micro scale. Yang says the researcher found that the two particles could make a very reliable oscillator, but as more particles were added, the rhythm would get thrown off. However, if they added one particle that was slightly different from the others, that particle could act as a leader that reorganized the other particle back into the rhythmic oscillator. This leader particle is the same size as the other particles, but has a slightly larger platinum patch, which enables it to create a larger oxygen bubble. This allows this particle to move to the center of the group, which where it coordinates the oscillation of all of other particles. Using this approach, the researcher found they could create oscillator containing up at least 11 particles depending on the number of particles. This oscillator beat at a frequency of about 0.1 to 0.3 hertz, which is on the order of the low frequency oscillator that govern biological functions such as walking and the beating of the heart. Oscillating current. The researcher also showed that they could use the rhythmic beating of these particles to generate an oscillating electric current. To do that, they swapped out the platinum catalyst for a fuel cell made of platinum and ruthenium or gold. The mechanical oscillation of the particle rhythmically alters the resistance from one end of the fuel cell to other, which converts the voltage generated by the fuel cell to an oscillating current. Generating an oscillating current instead of a constant one could be useful for applications such as powering tiny robots that can walk. The MIT researcher used this approach to show that they could power a micro actuator which was previously used as legs on a tiny walking robot developed by researcher at Cornell University. The original version was powered by a laser that had to be alternately pointed at each set of legs to manually oscillate the current. The MIT team showed that the onboard oscillating current generated by the particle could drive the cyclic actuation of the micro robotic leg using a wire to transfer the current from the particle to the actuator. It shows that this mechanical oscillation can become an electrical oscillation, and then that electrical oscillation can actually power activity that a robot would do. Strano says one possible application for this kind of system would be to control swarms of tiny autonomous robots that could be used as sensor to monitor water pollution. Hmm. Okay. So these are the findings given by our researcher that how a simple micro particles rhythmically together generating oscillating electric current in various application, of course. And yep, moving on towards next topic. Apple to withhold latest employees perks from unionized store. Oh, right. Okay, moving on. Let's read it and see. I mean, it's a news, so read it. Apple Incorporation is withholding its latest employee benefit from staff who work as at its sole unionized retail store, a move that could potentially inflame labor tension at the technology giant. The company told retail and corporate staff this week that it will increase benefit for outside educational classes and healthcare. According to people familiar with the matter, workers will get more funds to pursue coursework, and employees in some states that will able to access new health plan benefits, said the people who asked not to be identified because the program hasn't been announced publicly. It's a part of a broad effort to reward workers at the Cupertino, California based company, which has had to navigate inflationary pressure, a tight labor market, and changing demands of the worker during the pandemic. But the company was quick to inform the employer at its unorganized retail location stored in the Baltimore suburb of Towson, Maryland, that they wouldn't get the new perks. The reason given was the Towson stores needs to negotiate benefit with Apple via the collective bargaining arrangement that comes with a union. The approach isn't unique to Apple, excluding unionized stores from new benefit has been a flashpoint in the labor dispute. Starbucks Corporation, where about 250 cafes have voted to unionize over the past year, Starbucks rolled out a series of new perks at non union stores, including resident and student depth coaching, while saying that it can legally provide them unilaterally to sites with union activity. Apple move could dissuade employees in other cities from unionizing their stores, but it also could further upset workers. The company declined to comment. Employees at an Apple store in Oklahoma City are due to the vote this week whether to join the communication workers of America, and labor groups are looking to mobilize workers at more of the company US stores in the coming months. The iPhone maker also has contended with some employee pushback in its office stack, which was ordered back to in-person work in recent months. The new benefits include Apple preparing some tuition for outside education. The company has long reimbursed employees for a portion of education costs, but the iPhone maker will now pay the amount in advance. This will start a small amount of colleges through the list is expected to expand over time. A program with the Coursera incorporation beginning on Jan 1st that gives Apple employees a free membership. Coursera is an online course provider, of course, that normally charges $399 per year from its for its premium subscription. Okay, in certain states, including Connecticut, New York, Georgia, Washington, and New Jersey, employees will get access to a new healthcare plan that waives co-pays for some Apple approved doctors within the United Health Group Incorporation network. Apple behavior could be deemed by the National Labor Relation Board to violate federal law, which forbids anti-union threats or discrimination. Labor experts say the timing of the new benefits could be particularly significant since it comes on the eve of the Oklahoma City election. It's hard to see what they could come up with a legitimate reason for the timing sorry for the timing other than to influence the outcome of the election. Former union attorney and NLRB chair Wilma Libyan said in an email, Apple has expanded other benefits for workers over the past year. The company previously upped vacation and sick days, and it has long offered healthcare and product discounts. The store in Maryland, which is represented by the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers Union, is preparing to begin formal negotiation with Apple. Its labor group in recent days supplied employees with guides to negotiate with Apple and hold conversation with managers. According to an internal survey provided with the guide that was obtained by Bloomberg News, the number one bargaining priority at the location general wage increases, followed by cost of living adjustments, improved work life balance, better communication, and more staffing. The union said Wednesday that it remained committed to negotiation at the Maryland store. Our goal is still the same. The IM union said in a statement, we are urging Apple to negotiate in good faith so we can reach an agreement over the next few weeks. Apple Union related moves have been under heavy scrutiny in recent weeks, with the NLRB and as CWA accusing the iPhone maker of discriminating against pro union employees. In the Starbucks case, the union said it waived the right to negotiate over receiving perks that were already being provided to other stores, meaning employees should just get them automatically. Workers United, the group attempting to organize Starbucks cafes, described the denial of benefits as a union busting tactic. While it is true that the law restricts companies from making unilateral changes at unionized shops, nothing prohibits management from offering to give union workers the same new perks that the other staff are getting, said Harvard Law School professor Benjamin Sachs. That's true even if there isn't yet an overall collective bargaining agreement yet, he said. They can't impose the increases, but they can offer them to the union, Sachs said. If you give benefit increases to non-union workers and withhold them from union workers, you are sending a message of favoritism and discrimination, he said. You are trying to discourage a worker from forming unions. Okay. So these are the things, these are the studies. Uh, this is the news being provided by us. Yep. Okay. Moving on towards next topic. a new method to dehydrogenate alkanes at ambient conditions. Okay. The chemical terms alkenes or paraffin refers to organic compound that consist of single bonded carbon and hydrogen atoms such as methane, ethane, and propane, and several other hydrocarbons. Over the years, alkenes have become widely used in organic chemistry due to their unique chemical properties and their role in producing chemical reactions. In recent decades, chemists have been exploring the possibility of breaking alkenes down through a process known as non-oxidative dehydrogenation. It attained valuable carbon feedstocks and hydrogen fuel. This could ultimately have valuable implications for the energy sector, as it would provide a low-cost method of creating clean fuel for new hydrogen-based energy solution. Unfortunately, the CH bonds in alkenes can generally only be broken down at high temperatures under ultraviolet light or using stoichiometric oxidants. This hinders the large scale adoption of this approach to create hydrogen fuel. Researchers at Jilin University in China have recently introduced a possible strategy to achieve the non oxidative dehydrogenation of alkenes invisible to near infrared light and at room temperature. Their proposed method, introduced in a paper published in Nature Energy, entails the use of platinum titanium dioxide (PT black dioxide) photocatalyst, in which platinum atoms are closed but not fully bonded. The initial goal of our study was to replace the commercial titanium oxide used in my previous work with the black titanium oxide to enhance the light observation capacity of the catalyst. Liu Li said, in our experiments, we utilized solar light energy to drive the non-oxidative dehydrogenation dehydrogenation of alkenes at room temperature. The introduction of clean photon energy can overcome the thermodynamic limitation, making alkenes conversion occurred at ambient conditions with higher selectivity and durability. In an initial experiment, the approach by Lee and his colleagues achieved highly promising results, as it could efficiently dehydrogenate different alkenes at room temperature and invisible to near infrared lights. For cyclohexane, their photocatalyst enabled the production of H2 with a turnover number of 100 100,000, with the reaction effectively ongoing for 80 reaction cycles. This is significantly better result than they achieved by thermal reaction. For methane, on the other hand, the researcher achieved a conversion rate of 8.2% with a 65% selective to propane. Finally, for C2 plus alkenes, lithium and his colleagues achieved a fast dehydrogenation up to 1440 mol gram hydro gram, right, to the corresponding olefins. The brand new single atom collection catalyst can combine the advantages of single atom catalyst and nano catalyst. Lithium said this new class of catalyst may have potential application in many important heterogeneous catalytic processes. In the future, the photocatalyst used by this team of researchers could prove to be highly valuable for enabling the production of hydrogen fuel from alkenes without the need of high temperature UV light and the stoichiometric oxidants. This could help to lower the cost of the hydrogen fuel production, thus potentially facilitating its use for energy applications. To extend this work, we are now looking for efficient photocatalysts based on cheap metals, lithium added. Furthermore, we will extend the substrates to various non-toxic saturated hydrocarbons. Okay, okay. Moving on to our next topic, the successful The successful the successful the successful integration of a sub zero point 0.5 nanometer dielectric with 2D semiconductors, field effective transistor FETs, are transistor in which the resistance of most of the electric current can be controlled by transverse electric field. Over the past decade or so, these devices have proved to a very valuable solution for controlling the flow of current in semiconductor. To further develop FETs, electronic engineers worldwide have recently been trying to reduce their size. While these downscaling efforts have been found to increase the device speed and lower their power consumption, they are also associated with the short channel effects, that is, unfavorable effects that occur when a FET's channel length is approximately equal to the space charge region of source and drain junctions within its substrate. These undesirable effects, which includes barrier loading and velocity saturation, could be suppressed by using 2D semiconductor channels with high carrier mobility and ultra thin high K dielectric, that is, material with high dielectric constant. Integrating 2D semiconductor with a dielectric with similar oxide thickness has been found to highly challenging. Researchers at Peking University and the University of Texas at Austin have recently demonstrated the successful integration of a sub zero point 0.5 nanometer dielectric layer with 2D semiconductor based transistor. The design introduced in paper published in Nature Electronics could ultimately pave the way towards the development of smaller, faster, and the more efficient FETs. Previously, we have synthesized a polycrystalline high K dielectric constant native oxide dielectric of 2D bioxide cesium and found that it is equivalent oxide thickness EOT and can be scaled down to 0.9 nanometer, but the leakage current exceeds the low power limit. Halian Pang, one of the researchers who carried out the study, told Tech Explore, inspired by the layered crystal structure of 2D bioxide cesium and the intercalation of 2D materials, we designed an intercalative oxidation process to retain the latest framework of the precursor to obtain a single crystalline native oxide with better insulative for further downscaling. To integrate the dielectric with a 2D semiconductor, Pang and his colleagues used a process called UV assisted intercalative oxidation. Firstly, they decompose oxygen molecule contained in the air atomic oxygen using 185 nanometer ultraviolet UV rays emitted from a low pressure mercury lamp. Subsequently, they use the atomic oxygen to oxidize the the, the cesium layer in the 2D semiconductor by bioxide cesium between the two bioxide two Na plus layers without affecting the properties of the bioxide layers. This process led to the formation of new layered phase which inherit the single crystalline bioxide structure of the original bioxide cesium sample. The as synthesized oxide is further confirmed to be a single crystalline native dielectric and named beta beta bias cesium oxide. Pang explained the single crystalline native oxide beta bias oxide has a thickness independent high electric dielectric constant of about 22 ultra fat lattice mesh interface and excellent insulativity even when scaled down to 2.3 nanometer, and the EOT equivalent oxide thickness 3.9 into thickness into dielectric constant is as low as 0.41 nanometer. The leakage current at 1 voltage gate voltage is still below the low power limit 0.15 centimeter square, meeting the industrial requirements of dielectrics in next generation transistors. The initial test carried out by Pang and his colleagues yielded an interesting result overall. The findings suggest beta by cesium oxide, the material they created, could be promising for developing an ultra thin high K dielectric constant gate dielectric in 2D transistor. The most notable achievement of our study was the successful integration of sub zero point 0.5 nanometer to EOT dielectric in the top gated 2D transistor, which meets the benchmark of dielectric in the 2021 International Roadmap for Devices and System Pang said. Thus, one of the challenges for 2D electronics, the integration with the sub zero point 0.5 nanometer EOT ultra thin high K dielectric, has been overcome. The team of researchers demonstrated the possibility of integrating 2D semiconductor with the high K dielectric in the future. The material that they created, the method introduced in the paper, could be used to create small and highly performing FETs that are not adversely impacted by short channel efforts. We will now further investigate the compatibility of beta by cesium oxide with other common 2D material and metal electrodes. Pang added in addition a large scale transfer process of biocesium oxide or its precursor bioxide cesium is also desired for the integration of this ultra thin high K dielectric with a broad range of 2D materials. Okay, okay, okay. I mean, great, great, man, great. Okay, moving on to the next topic. A new AI model can accurately predict human response to novel drug compounds. Okay. The journey between identifying a potential therapeutic compound and Food and Drug Administration approval of a new drug can take well over a decade and cost upward of $1 billion. A research team at the SUNY Graduate Center has created an artificial intelligence model that could significantly improve the accuracy and reduce the time and cost of the drug development process. Described in a newly published paper in Nature Machine Intelligence, the new model called Code AE can screen novel drug compounds to accurately predict efficiency in humans. In tests, it was also able to theoretically identifying personalized drugs for over 9,000 patients that could better treat their condition. Researchers expect the technique to significantly accelerate drug discovery and precision medicine. Accurate and robust prediction of patient specific responses to a new chemical compound is critical to discover safe and effective therapeutics and select an existing drug for a specific patient. However, it is unethical and infeasible to do early efficiency and testing of a drug in humans directly. Cell or tissue models are often used as a surrogate of the human body to evaluate the therapeutic effects of a drug molecule. Unfortunately, the drug effect in a disease model often does not correlate with the drug efficiency and toxicity in human patients. This knowledge gap is a major factor in the high cost and low productivity rates of drug discovery. Our new machine learning models can address the translational challenge from disease models to humans, said Li Xing, a professor of computer science, biology, and biochemistry at the CUNY Graduate Center and Hunter College. In the paper, senior author Code AE uses biology inspired design and takes advantage of several recent advances in machine learning. For example, one of its components uses similar techniques in deepfake image generation. The new model can provide a workaround to the problem of having sufficient patient data to train a generalized machine learning model, said Yun Xiu, a CUNY Graduate Center PhD student and co-author of the paper. Although many methods have been developed to utilize cell line screens for predicting clinical responses, the performance are unreliable due to data incognitive and discrepancy. View said Code AE can extract intrinsic biologic signals marked by noise and confounding factors and effectively elevated the data discrepancy problem. As a result, code AI significantly improves accuracy and robustness over state of the art method in predicting patient specific drug responses purely from cell line compound screens. The research team new next challenge in advancing the technology used in drug discovery in developing a way of code AE to reliably predict the effect of new drug concentration and metabolization in human bodies. The researcher also noted that the AI model could potentially be tweaked to accurately predict human side effects to drugs. So, I mean, it's a great thing, of course. At last, I just want to say, you guys, keep researching, stay curious, stay healthy.